know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
And I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And today we are joined by Stefan Berthomieux of the band The Big Easy. I hope I said that right. Who just recently put out their first full-length record, A Long Year, Forged Artifact Records. The record is fantastic. I've said it a couple times to him directly, but it's a truly excellent record, so I definitely recommend people check it out. The conversation's really good. What are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about the 1997 album Nothing Feels Good by The Promise Ring. So we are hitting a milestone emo record, 90s emo record, and kind of just 1997 in general. We spent a lot of time on a lot of other music.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the episode, you'll notice there's a slight strangeness going on with Dylan's Dylan's side of the conversation. Why don't you tell people why?
I bought a car, and I was driving. And it was a lot louder than I expected. So it was not an ideal recording situation. So we ended up breaking this episode in half. Mm-hmm. Of course, I don't think I said all that much.
Yeah, so the first part of the conversation is primarily like interviewee type general conversations with Stefan, and so it's like talking about the Big Easy and the new record and all that good stuff. So yeah, Dylan didn't really chime in too much until the end of that, and then we just stopped and like picked up the next day and recorded then. So don't worry about the audio quality on this one. Dylan doesn't talk for too long inside his car, so
I muted for most of the time that I was in there, so
yeah.
If it sounds really rough at first, bear with it, because it cleans up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But otherwise, follow us on all forms of social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Punk Lotto Pod. You know, all the good stuff. So, yeah. Hope you enjoy the show.
Take it outside. I was living in the basement, and I could never see outside. But I was happy in my own way. I'm on a road to recovery. I took my time to get this right, and now all I ever say is fine. I took my time to get this right, and now all I ever say
I had a few questions about the Big Easy first before we even talk about like 97 and the album. First of all, I want to say the new record is amazing.
Thank you so much.
It's your first full length, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Which is like awesome because I was going back and looking at like your Bandcamp and like the first things on there are around what, 2014? Does that sound about right?
Yeah. I dropped like our first EP around 2014, which was kind of just like songs that I wrote before even like the Big Easy was even a thing, and then like once I kind of like started the thing, the Big Easy, I recorded those songs and put that out. So that was the very like first like kind of thing we put together. But it was just like an EP. It was never like a full-length album, I would say.
Yeah, and then I found it's like a 2016 version of Fun and Games that's on your new record as well.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit! Like these songs have been bouncing around for a while.
Yeah. That song. I mean, when you know what they say, right? Like you have your whole life to write your first record. So yeah, that song is like it came out. I had a version of that song in 2016. Yeah, totally. That's when I wrote it. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to record this right now. So it sounds like, it definitely sounds like that too.
Well, it's got this sound to it that I kind of got this vibe from the new record too. I've been calling this sound like Heartland punk, or like, I like to say pettycore, like Tom Pettycore, but it's not 100% in that vein. But
right.
Like I get like the band Timeshares out of New York, they do it a little bit. Gaslight Anthem, of course. Beach Slang, and I wondered too if that is even like a thing that's on your radar. Like I know you're from New Jersey, which is the Springsteen state. Does he play an influence? Does Gaslight play an influence on your music, or is it just like just happenstance that you've come along?
Yeah, I would say it's probably more happenstance, to be honest. I don't listen to any of those bands, and no, not a knock at all. I mean, they're all great. They got a lot of fans, and they're all great. It's just I just don't really like listen to them on a regular basis. I'd say the only thing I kind of listened to what you named was Beach Slang, and I haven't listened to them in a while. But it's funny. I mean, I definitely heard some of those comparisons in the past, but yeah, actually, I don't really draw. I haven't listened to them enough to say that I've actually like drawn any kind of like inspiration or anything from them. But I mean, it could just happen because we're like from the same area, and like so there could be some influence in that regard, I'd say.
I definitely get to like these are just my observations too. Like I get a little bit of I want to say garage rock, but I mean more in like the Japandroids, like that type of garage rock, like especially on like the filters you use on your vocals and effects like that. I was just curious, like what are your like primary influences, if you could even call it that?
Right. At this point, I mean,
like boiling it down that simply.
Life is the influence. Like cheap beers and life.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, it was, I've always just really loved, like, vocal distortions, and, like, I always felt that, I could use my vocals as an instrument as well. And I think that's kind of my idea behind that. It's just like, why not put the vocals through a guitar amp? Why not, like, have fun with it? I mean, like, it's just like any other instrument, and that's the way I viewed it. But I also really love lo-fi music, which, I mean, you can hear in the record. And I think that a big thing in lo-fi music is kind of, muffled vocals or distorted vocals or vocals that are kind of like far back or roomy and stuff like that. And I think that's a big part of it as well. So what I tried to achieve with the records, I tried to find a middle ground between the two, like having something that listeners can actually hear the vocals and the words and the content lyrically, but also still has that like very roomy, live, fucked up, distorted sound to it that I want to achieve as well. I think we did a pretty good job at it. I'm sure some stuff like totally gets lost in there, but it's just kind of like what comes with the vibe. If you're gonna do all that to your vocals or like make them roomy and stuff, some of the stuff might get lost, and I've accepted that. But for the most part, I think it sounds like I'm very happy with the way it came out. So yeah, I think that most of the influence really did come from like trying to have like that lo-fi sound to it.
It's funny. I sent the video for Fun and Games to my friend, and the first thing he commented was like, "I love the effect on the vocals." Like,
Yes.
so it works. It
Yes.
totally works. So like,
Love to hear that. Love to hear that.
So is this a full-fledged band at this point, or is it still essentially like you do what you can and then just have some friends help out?
I would say it's more of a full-fledged band at this point. You know, I started this thing on my own, but at this point, like, you know, my band, you know, Steven, Pete, and who fills in on bass for most of the time is our friend Mateo. You know, we've been playing together for quite some time now, and they've had a huge part in the record recording process as well. So at this point, like, I think it's I present this as a full band. I don't think it's safe to say that I'm the only one doing, you know, everything anymore. I still do most of like a lot of the things here in regards to like the songwriting and like that process, but it does get filtered through the rest of the band. And I think, to me, in my personal opinion, I think that's kind of like how a lot of bands kind of operate these days.
It's true. We had Elise Okusami from Oceanator on earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she has some people she plays with, but she writes most of the songs, and like everything is all like her writing. She recorded a lot of the instruments on that record too. And then we had Hoagie from Sunny Falls on too, and he's more like yours. Like, he has a regular like people he plays with, but it is still essentially like his songs, his, you know, arrangements. So
I just think that it's just harder to kind of like, I had a rotating cast of musicians, you know, in the past. It's just harder to kind of make that shit happen. And, you know, once you give, you know, people a sense of ownership to, you know, to what you're doing, you know, I think they deliver more, and it's just more fun to kind of like gel with people and like get a sound going, and having a rotating cast is cool, but for me it's just so much easier to like, you know, have like a band, you know, the Big Easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, definitely makes sense. It probably helps too that you've got like established, like, I write the songs, like,
right? Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that kind of comes with, I was doing it a lot longer before they, you know, were.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I mean, like, at that, if you look at it from that regard, like, they're joining something that I've already worked and made. So I mean, I think that in any regard, if you join in on something, you know, you can't really try to like, you know, you can't take what someone else's.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
You know, when someone has like a vision for what they're doing, when someone has spent time on something, you don't necessarily want to come in and be like, well, I really think we should do this, unless they're asking for that, you know?
Exactly, you know? And
like, hey, I really want some feedback on this. Like, do we want to, you know, change the structure of the song, or, you know, whatever it might be?
exactly. And I think that like that is what I think is important in like setting like the ground rules, I guess, and you start a band and whatnot. Like, for the most part, like all the bands I've been in, it usually was like a main songwriter, and then we just like, you know, when my past bands, like I would play bass in other bands, and there'd be a main songwriter, and we would just like bring us the songs. It's like, okay, cool, and this is what I'll try to contribute to the songs. And then there are other bands where it's just like, all right, let's all sit down together and, you know, work on this together. And I think I think they're all awesome. I feel like I really get the sense that like bands like Radiohead, or bands that just like all sit down together and write songs together. Like, I feel like I just get the sense, I'm not sure if I'm right or not, but I don't think that like Tom York is writing a song and then bringing it to the rest of the band. I feel like they are a type of band that kind of like, you know, does it together. And then like maybe like a band like, I don't know, like, you know, I guess Kurt Weill or LCD Sound System or Courtney Barnett. I feel like that's a person who like brings a song to the band, and then they kind of like go from there.
Yeah, we were in a hardcore band together, and it was definitely like, everybody. There's only like one of everything. One guitar, one bass, one vocalist. So it was definitely like I was the bass player, so I wasn't bringing songs to the band. So.
Right. It's kind of tough to write songs on bass. It's possible, but it's kind of tough, especially if you're in a punk band.
Yeah.
It's gonna go like this, and it's gonna go like this. It's like what?
I don't know what the harmony will sound like though.
Right. God, dude.
But like our guitarist would be the one who would have like a series of riffs, and then he would bring those in, and then he would build the song based off of like a couple riffs, but he was the primary, if you want to say, songwriter. It's way more collaborative than I expected. And then Dylan would write his own lyrics too.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, guitar hardcore band it's not because I was thinking like hardcore bands and heavy bands in general. They're easier to be more collaborative because they're not necessarily written with like a chord progression in mind. They're pieced together a little bit more. So it's like when you have, multiple instrumentalists in the band, you might have someone, here's a riff, can we do this, something with this, and then, but yeah, one guitarist hardcore band, it was all on, him to write.
I feel like a one guitar hardcore band, like that guy's got to be a fucking ripper.
He came to hardcore from like metal. So like he knew his stuff really well.
Right.
So
You gotta rip, dude. Like, you can't be just giving me power chords the whole damn time. I need to hear something.
Yeah.
I mean, but funny enough though, like the song Alone on our record, I wrote that one on bass first. It's literally just one bass line over and over. But technically, I wrote that one on bass first, and then I added like the guitar. Like I had that chord progression for bass melody in my head, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna work this one out, and then I'll add guitars on this after. And that's essentially, I mean, the whole song is just fucking bass anyway.
Yeah. I tried to start a band with this guy one time, and it was just me and him at the beginning for a long time. We never found a drummer, so we never did anything.
Nice. That'll definitely get you off the ground.
But like I played bass, and I would write these songs on bass, and then I would bring them to him, and neither one of us were good enough musicians to actually like be able to explain how to play the songs to each other.
Oh no!
So we were just like, what are you playing? Like we're just looking at each other's hands and trying to figure out what the roots are. Like, it's like we're not good enough musicians for this.
That must have been a shit show.
Yeah, we did nothing. We never.
What chord should I play here? I don't know.
Right?
I just played one string, so I don't know what chord you need to play.
Like, well, what chord am I playing?
So the record came out on Forged Artifacts, who
it sure did
have a pretty good year right now. Especially they put out that Half Stack album earlier this year, and they put out a record last year from a band called A Hymn that I really liked. How'd you wind up working with that label? They kind of seem to be on the upturn, or like they're up and coming label.
Right. I mean, well, shout out to Forged Artifacts. They're awesome. And Matt Linden, it's like he pretty much runs the whole show. He was a huge help in getting this record out and whatnot. But it's funny. I guess the way that I came in contact with them was, all right. So about this time last year, I just had like 3 demos of the album ready to go, like presentable. So I was like reaching out to so many different labels, just seeing if I can like get one label to get on board to want to put this out. And I was sending these demos out to so many labels. And like all of them were like, hell no, dude, fuck off. Not even responding, just being like, no. And I'm like, fuck, all right. And so I keep on, and then like, 2020 comes around, and I'm still working on the record. I got some more songs now where I'm closer to finishing the album. Well, I'm just about finished, really. And I'm still pitching this record out to so many labels, like talking to all the friends that I know that work in the music industry, getting like if I showed you my notepad of labels that I have, like I've sent it to so many. I have like a little checklist, and like most of them didn't respond, or most of them were just like no. And I sent a demo to Disposable America, and like around this time last year, and then Dustin, who is I guess the owner of that label, reached out to me in like February or like January, something like that, like months, like 5 months, like so long after I reached out to him, and he was like, "Hey, like I love what you got going on, but it's a no. We can't put this record out." Like, damn it. But he's like, "But here's these other labels I think you should reach out to." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So then I reached out to a couple of them, didn't really hear much, reached back out to Disposable America. He gave me some more labels to reach out to. I reached out to some more. I spent so much time sending emails, you have no idea.
I mean, I know what it's like to send 1,000 emails.
Right. And so Dustin put me in contact with Forged Artifacts. I reached out to Forged Artifacts beginning this year, and at first, like, I wasn't really sure because I reached out, and it was like, yeah, we like it, but we got some other stuff going on, so we'll see what we can do. And I was like, all right, well, I'll just keep on looking then. And then as I got closer to like finishing the record, I reached back out, but then COVID happened, and when COVID struck, Matt George was like, "Hey man, like we'd love to put this record out, but our presses are closed. We can't, do anything right now." So I was like, "Shit, all right." So, I waited maybe like another like month or two, and reached back out to them, and then that's when we finally started the dialogue. And funny enough, like Forge Artifacts is based in Minneapolis, and the first time me and Matt talked, like on the phone, like to discuss the record and whatnot, was like a week after like what happened with George Floyd. So like our whole pretty much discussion was just based around like that. And like we talked about the record a little bit, but like we were kind of just talking about like that shit. I mean, because Matt was like literally watching his city burn. I mean, meanwhile, like I was kind of just like getting all this weird attention from everyone. The Big Easy started getting all this like attention and shit. Like I swear, no one gave a fuck about the Big Easy until like I started doing like a bunch of like random interviews out of nowhere, like in response to the Black Lives Matter movement, which is all great. But so like our big discussion was like around that, and we kind of like were on the same page about everything, and we had the same vision about what we wanted for the record. He was willing to pretty much give me everything I wanted for the album, which was, I don't think, too much, but like he facilitated pretty much all of that, everything that I wanted to do. He's the reason why, and we were just on the same page about everything. But long story short, like I got hooked up with Forge through Disposable America, who put us in contact, and then from there we kind of just ran with it.
Yeah, I feel like I guess like punk, DIY, indie music around George Floyd was like they just looked around and were like, shit, we're kind of complicit in like not having enough diverse array, people voices in our.
Oh my god! They just looked around and was like, "Fuck, dude."
Oh shit, we're just talking to more white people. This is. It's a strange thing that's happened. It's a great thing that's happened. That's needed to happen forever. But at the same time, it's just like it's weird what it took to get people to care and make an effort.
Right. I think that's the kind of the weirdest part about it. I would say, and I've been saying this a lot. I would say that any black person of color that's at least like a little socially aware or conscious, must feel like extreme like complex feelings right now in regards to like the attention that they're getting, because it's almost just like, well, shit, like I've been doing this for a long ass time and nobody gave a fuck, and now all of a sudden like you guys want to do these interviews, and now you guys want to feature my band, and it's like, hell yeah. I mean, like you feel like you deserve it, and you feel like you've been wanting it for a while, but at the same time it's like, damn, like is this what it took for it to happen? And then at the same time you're out here trying to like suss people out and be like, is this person just trying to like ride this wave or ride this moment or not, or are they actually down for it, or are they actually about it? And that's kind of like what I feel like a lot of people are having to kind of like that like internal struggle. I think like a lot of people are kind of asking themselves these days.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen labels like signing new bands, and then being like, huh, all white dudes again, huh? So it's just always like, there's like amazing artists out here, and you're just like, and we got another white one.
Yeah. The craziest thing that I saw was I saw Run for Cover was doing like a live stream, like audio trees and like I don't know, some like live stream, and they were gonna donate all the proceeds to I think so whatever black owned organization, in response to Black Lives Matter movement. All the bands, not a single band had any black people in the band. And I'm looking at the lineup, I'm like, what the fuck is this? I swear to God, I was just like, what the?
It's like
it was wild.
Went out of their way. Like, I feel like that's hard to do, almost. To be like, to not get even one band with someone.
Dude, it was wild. Like, and it's crazy because I know that like someone that I knew was signed to Run for Cover, and they passed our demo to them right when I was kind of like doing this whole thing, and obviously they passed and didn't say much or anything. And then like so like at that like I always know when like just like it's almost like when you're an athlete and someone tells you you can't make it to the big leagues, and then you try harder and then you make it to the big leagues and shit like that. And so like I've like I would see like on my SoundCloud like who listened to the record, and then like who didn't hit me back or whatnot. And it's always like, okay, made a mental note. So I feel like I've always kind of like a bone to pick with that label anyway. And then I see them kind of like do this like this live stream, for like Black Lives Matter, and then don't have any bands that have anyone who's black in those bands. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
They kind of got dragged for it too, if I remember.
I remember Twitter was kind of like saying some shit about them and whatnot. And look, I think they're a great label. Like, don't get me wrong. Right. I'm not sitting here talking shit about Run for Cover. I think they're a great label, and they have some amazing bands on that label. I just thought it was kind of funny, Yeah,
my thinking on it is, okay, if you have a history of not signing bands with black artists in it, then make an effort. Like,
right.
Because once you get in the habit of making that effort and decision to like seek out black artists, it just becomes second nature anyway. Like, it's not
right.
After a while, you're just like, it stops registering almost that like, well, I found this band and then I found this band. It's just like, it's so easy to just get in the mindset of just try a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of weird because I mean, for a while, like before any of this, I was never someone that kind of. Oh man, it's really weird to even kind of say. Like, I was never someone that was like really kind of like trying to put, I guess, my blackness in the forefront of my music. That's not what I was trying to do at all. I just wanted to make music and have people just fucking, listen to it. At the end of the day, like, I'm a black artist, so it's always gonna be the forefront. Like, I'm the songwriter, singer of this band, and people are going to see me. And so, what this whole I've learned so much from this, like, in this past year than I've ever learned. I've learned so much in this past year, and I realized that like there is no way getting around that. Like, I feel like it's now people are not just going to listen to the Big Easy and be like, oh, it's the Big Easy. I feel like I didn't realize that. I guess people viewed the Big Easy and be like, oh, even if they would say it to themselves or not, like, that band with the black lead singer, and like, you don't really say that for any other band, right? I mean, they would just be the band. But I mean, I realize that's kind of the case for it now, and it's not something I'm mad about. It's just something I always tried to, like, in the past, downplay, because that's not what I wanted to be known for. I just wanted to be known for making good music and whatnot. And I never wanted like any shortcuts. I didn't want anyone to kind of like, patronize because, I didn't look like anyone else like that. But then at the same time, you got to realize that you probably were not getting the same opportunities as anyone else because of you look different than everyone else. So at this point, it's kind of just like, fuck it. Like, I think that like, all these black artists, and all of a sudden, like, in this past like year, I've seen so many black indie rock artists pop up, and are getting like so big, and they're all so great. And I'm just like, it's just kind of crazy to see. Like, I feel like it's almost maybe becoming normalized, because no one wants to be tokenized. That's the one thing you don't want. Like, you don't want to be like, oh, that one black band and that one, on that label. It shouldn't be that. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know like where to begin. And honestly, that's not even for me to even figure out. That's for everyone else to figure out. like that ain't my fucking problem anymore. I got enough of those. But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to see, and it's also like really awesome and uplifting to see. Like I always felt like I can't be the only black dude doing this shit. I can't. If I'm doing it, there's got to be other people. But how come I don't see them? Like every show, I've never really played a show in which like I was like amongst like other black artists.
Right.
That like I would say like pretty much like every show I've ever played. So that kind of like that means something in a way. And then when you see like start to happen now, you see all these artists kind of like breaking through. And I don't know if it's in response to the movement or not. I would guess it is. But either way, it's just like it's just nice to see things look a little different these days.
I think a part of the problem was the exposure wasn't there from the people that should have been making an effort to expose the greater audiences to black artists. Like,
right.
It became a focus. Like, before there weren't these like Excel documents listing every black artist, like regardless of genre, which there are now out there, which is odd. Right. It's like, well, go to the database and look and find one. Like, it's just
what is this?
What is happening? But at the same time, you almost had no way of like searching for that in the first place. It's like
right.
A Reddit post from 6 years ago, you could maybe find something, but like it's like the people who should have been making a more conscious effort weren't, and this year they finally decided to pay attention, and it's worked out so great for a lot of musicians now. But yeah, it is interesting. It has to move past tokenism. It has to move past just like fulfilling a quota.
Right. So, exactly.
I want to say I found your video through No Earbuds. I think.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
Jamie
Coletta, she is a wizard at what she does. She's awesome. Like
she shared the video, and I was like, this video is cool. It's like a fun like party, like prom sort of setup.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
And I was just
disco balls, baby. Disco balls.
I was like, this is great. I can't wait.
It's a common theme on the record. a lot of disco balls.
And listening to it, I was like, shit, this is kind of like, we mentioned Beach Slang a little earlier, but this feels like the Beach Slang record that should have come out this year, because they put one out this year that is, I'm not a fan of. But
I didn't even know they did.
It was like pre-COVID, so like
I mean that got washed away then.
Yeah.
COVID just took over everything.
I was like, I listened to it, I didn't like that record, and I was like, this is very disappointing. And then your record came along, and I was like, this is way better than what they should have been doing. But I love the record. It's fantastic. I recommend everyone.
Thank you so much. I'm humbled to hear that. That's great.
I recommend everyone get it. I'm gonna get it. I don't have a physical copy yet. I'm gonna get it on one of those Bandcamp Fridays, which I thought was last Friday.
That's this Friday.
I thought it was last Friday, and so I was like, oh yeah. And then I went to look, and I was like, it's not today. Oh, okay, I'll wait. I'll wait another week.
I'm sorry.
Well, I just didn't look at the calendar. Shit, we talked a long time. Let's talk about. We gave you the year 1997.
It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. Away, don't hate me, running away from you. It's all I want, it's all I want, it's all I want, it's all I want. Bright side, fish fly.
I mean, probably
these
putting his
updated
little-
charts are interesting.
right.
Yeah. It's
Well,
like,
why? But I want to know, like, why wasn't Lonesome Crowded West the number one
I
at
guess,
that time?
so like it's right there, it's tagged as indie rock. And this new updated chart allows you to pull in not just like the specific genre, but like the also influenced by.
But what was
So-
the genre we were going by?
I mean, I just put in punk, and it tends to bring up
Okay,
emo, hardcore, all that
right,
kind of stuff.
right,
Indie rock is just
Right.
like one step away, even though we've said forever that like indie rock is one of those things. It's like it got all of its notes on how to operate punk rock, so like
right,
it's an extension of punk music. It's just a cleaned up version, I guess. But
right. That's interesting. Wow, I guess it doesn't really consider. Cause, I mean, I consider Nothing Feels Good an indie rock album. You know, I guess
Yeah.
I always viewed it that from that lens, and then from there it was also an emo album, like
Yeah.
a punk album. So I always kind of like put it indie rock first.
right,
But I guess I might be wrong in that sense, you know, because I also viewed Lonesome Crowded Rest as like an indie rock album, but also an emo album, also like a lo-fi kind of like record as well.
yeah, it's
I mean, so much of what's emo in '97 is either like Get Up Kids, where it's leaning much more into pop punk, or
Right.
Mineral, or Promise Ring, where it's leaning a lot into like indie rock and
Mhm.
almost like a pop rock. So it's
I
I don't
always
think you're too far off thinking of it as an indie album.
Right. I think it's always kind of funny to just like hear how other people did like loop albums that we're both familiar with and genres. So I'm like, oh no, well I hear like indie rock. Someone's like, no, I heard like this. And I'm like, but we listened to the same album.
well, what you're hearing are their individual influences that inspired this record. So
Right.
it's just you're more attuned to one sound than the other person is. So
Yeah. That's definitely a way of thinking about it. Like I've always like, even when it comes to like the Big Easy and shit, like, you know, like since this album came out, I've been, you know, hearing so many different like, I guess genres and labels were being thrown into that I never even like. I'm like, I don't hear that shit at all. But you know what I mean? But like, I've been kind of hearing that a lot. Like, I've been seeing like a lot of people loop the Big Easy into pop punk, and I never considered the Big Easy a pop punk band ever. And I think it's because like I view pop punk like when I was hearing pop punk, I was like in my teenage years. So I was like, you know, 2003, 2004, 2005, and pop punk was, I think, different than what it was in the 90s. So, you know, pop punk for me was kind of like, you know, like Sum 41 and Blink 182 and shit like that. And I'm like, I hated those bands. I hated those bands growing up. So when people go like, oh, like the Big Easy's got like some pop punk, I'm always kind of like, wait, what? Ew, stop.
it's so funny because like I call everything punk, even if like most people don't. And there was like this period where I would call stuff like Dillinger 4 pop punk, and it kind of is.
Right.
But at the same time, you know, it's Midwest pop punk, so it's a little different. But
Right.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, you can break it down into smaller and smaller subgenres and sounds if you want to, which I feel like I've moved away from that a lot in my life.
Right.
yeah,
Because I did that so much as like a metal kid, high school teenager, and was just like, no, it's atmospheric sludge, post sludge,
Like what?
just kind of metal. I mean, whatever.
it's funny. Yeah, the things you get hung up on when you're younger too. Like I
Right.
definitely got more hung up on genre, like descriptors when I was young.
I think that's kind of just a thing that like you go through as someone who loves music, like especially like when you're like in the indie rock music scene and shit. Like, you know, you kind of just like get so hung up on the genres and like no, like, you know, I'll make you like just have that like I know more than you, or I know a lot about genres and shit. And like I think at that time everyone kind of has to go through that phase until they realize it doesn't fucking matter. Like it doesn't matter at all. But I think that like that's kind of something that one needs to go through in like their maturing process, and as a music lover or being passionate about music, like you're always gonna like you're gonna dive deep, you're gonna want to learn more about this, that, and the third, and then you're gonna use your knowledge and try to like say it in any chance that you get. You know, to be like, oh no, this is an art punk album, or this is avant-garde. It's like, what, dude? It's just a fucking. This is just a, and I think that was kind of like a big thing. You know, at least it was a big thing for me when I was like in high school. So I feel like kind of everyone kind of goes through that, I suppose. In the scene that I guess we're discussing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some people never grow out of that too. Like there's definitely like this particular website that we look at. There's a lot of people on here that are like, no, this is the wrong tag.
Oh my god.
I mean, I get on it too when it's like way off base, but at the same time, somebody's just like, it's alternative rock. It's like that encompasses a lot of different stuff. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's true.
Like power pop, I guess, is like my big like people use that term wrong most of the time.
Pop?
So like,
all right. So like to me, like power pop would be like maybe like Fountains of Wayne, or like you said power pop, or am I thinking like, or maybe like even like you guys ever seen the Knack, or like the like kind of like like bands that like I don't really know how to describe it, but like, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
I tend to split it into kind of two different eras and not much else. Like to me, primarily I think of it as like late 70s pop oriented rock music that isn't punk, prog, or new wave.
Right.
Like
catchy as hell.
Usually
it's gotta be catchy.
It's super catchy and some crunchy guitars, probably some like, you know, really fun dual lead guitars or something like that.
And it's awesome.
Then right.
It's sick.
And then like the kind of 90s version of that, where like Weezer or Teenage Fan Club or Fountains of Wayne would be a great, like the bands in the 90s that were looking back to those 70s bands and drawing a lot of inspiration from them. That weren't, you know, grunge bands or
I mean, that's what I think
power
pop is. I was curious to know if was I on the mark with that.
You are. A lot of people, though, use it now to apply it to, like, basically anything with, like, catchy melodies, and it's kind of upbeat. So, like, I'm trying to think of who was one that, like...
They're
more recent
year, the new Warriors record I saw it called Power Pop, and I was like, it's a punk record. Like, I mean, there's some rock influence, but it's a punk record. Like, it's a punk band. Historically, they have been a pop punk band. I don't know. I think there's an aversion to calling things punk for a lot of people. I think there has been, because it draws a kind of what you were saying about pop punk. Like, you don't want to group these bands that you like with these bands that you don't. And I think that's where a lot of people get kind of hung up, where it's like, it's not classic punk, and it's not skate punk, and it's not pop punk. And if they don't listen to a lot of punk music, they would probably just be like, I don't know, it's power pop.
Punk kind of got so like there was like that 90s reputation, just like, you know, skateboarding, Warped Tour, Mountain Dew, you know.
Mountain Dew.
That's like your extreme.
Gotta throw that in Mountain Dew. Damn.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtrack.
Right.
And then, like, I guess that in the early 2000s, it turned into like the emo just became like a term for everything that was
like a lifestyle in a way, really.
Yeah. And then all those bands that would have just been like pop punk bands are now called emo, and then there was like,
but that's not emo, like you know, like Sum 41 and like I just don't feel that, like, you know, Blink-182 or shit like that, or even like emo bands. They're just like pop punk, like punk bands, you know. And maybe they may have like some kind of a little bit of tinge, and like I'm not saying that you can't group them in the same, like, I'm not saying that like Blink-182 and My Chemical Romance can't play a show together. They can definitely play a show together and you'd be fine. Yeah. But like, I just like never, like, I'm at an emo night and I fucking hear Blink-182 come on. I'm like, this isn't emo.
Yeah.
Like, I want to hear some fucking like cursive and fucking like, you know what I
You know, it's funny. I was looking at 1997, so like, I guess for the show's sake, that's the year we assigned you. And like, I was looking at the emo records that came out that year, And so the big ones are Minerals, Power Failing. Like is that the first Mineral record or the second one? That is
the first.
it's the first. In Serenading was the second one. So there's that one. Our record we're talking about today. Get Up Kids, 4 Minute Mile.
Right.
There's a Dismemberment Plan record, but that's when they start getting weird. Like
right, but I mean that Dismemberment Plan record, I'm not sure if it's like before. No, I think it's like their first or second, right?
I don't know. Let's see.
Because I feel like, all right, so like I would have definitely chosen Dismemberment Plan to talk about had it been Emergency and I.
Yeah,
and
that was 99.
And I think that one came out after. I think that's when they like were not like that's to me like it's not really an emo record. I would say it's more like a post-hardcore indie rock, like indie rock first, and then like I guess post kind of punk, post-hardcore, kind of weird. It's got some dancey vibes in there too and shit.
Right.
But like even that to me, I wouldn't even like kind of consider like emo.
It's funny, like people kind of took that band, like people into emo kind of took that record and were like, "That's one of ours." It's like, I mean, it kind of maybe vocally that's where they get it.
Responsibly hijacked it.
They're just like, "That's ours."
Yeah,
we claim that one.
It's like, this is a good record. This is ours now. Emo was good music.
This is a band that gets a lot of indie cred. We want this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You can have Jimmy Eat World now. We're done with them.
Yo, like that's like such a funny idea for like a skit where like, you know, different representatives of like different genres are like picking and choosing which ones they get and like trading albums or trading records to be like, no, this is an emo record now. You can have this for your like post-hardcore genre.
Which it kind of happens, like like I don't know, like it definitely happens where people are like, they're one of ours. Like, you know, metal kids can have that band over here, but
we don't want them anymore.
Yeah, we've got what we wanted out of them.
Yeah, that's kind of our like Justin's calling everything punk that's not necessarily punk. Mm-hmm. Like it's kind of just like, you know, it's close enough. Like I'll claim it. Like it's
yeah. They approach music in like a independent spirit, which is very much a punk thing. I mean, though, you know, Sex Pistols were on EMI and Ramones were on Sire Records, so like, you know, it was always a major label thing in the first place. I guess it's the US version of SST Records, Discord Records, like that truly independent spirit that kind of took over. Because then everybody would call out bands for signing to majors, like Husker Du got yelled at for signing to Warner Brothers, and like, Shudder to Think of all bands signed to a major record label. And so like, but then in the 90s it just blew up anyway, with Green Day being like a major label band. I mean, they started on Lookout, but like, it's funny. I just remember people calling Sellout for a lot of stuff. When now I'm just like, are the songs good? Because that's really all that matters at this point. Can I enjoy it?
I mean, people get caught up in the you know, the scene or it's just fucking being pretentious, really. Like, you know, I think that's kind of what it is. Like, and I think that like that's another thing that I feel like you kind of get to a point where you grow out of. It's just like, dude, I don't care what label you're signed to. I don't care what genre, you know, people are calling you and shit. Like, as long as the record's good, it's fine. And that's kind of like the way I view it when people like. When I started seeing like, you know, the pop punk kind of like influence or tags for the Big Easy record, I'm at a point where I'm just like, well, do people like it? Yeah, okay. Don't really give a shit then. You know, call it whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times audiences determine what, you know, what it's going to be called anyway. Like how many times have you heard a band who like rejected the term the audience like gave them? Like
many emo bands.
Yeah. They hate being called emo bands.
I mean,
we're just like a rock band. Like that's my favorite
like,
thing.
Shut up, stop it, and you know you're an emo band. And don't just stop.
Or like slowcore bands who hate the term slowcore, like the Originators. They're like, I just consider myself a rock band. It's like, you play incredibly slow. You are something more than just a regular rock band at this point.
Yeah, you're doing something very different than what rock radio was doing in the 90s.
Right.
Math rock, that's another big one where everyone who played it hated the term. They were just like, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Really, I
It's
feel
just
like math rock is like, yeah, we're mathy. But like, I feel like they hold that flag pretty high.
It turned into that, but I do know a lot of the originators were not crazy about the name. Like it
Oh,
was
really?
it was almost a joke. Like it was like, oh, this is like a math rock band.
I
Like
can see
I need
that.
a calculator to figure out how to play these rhythms.
Like, joking aside though, like math rock as a genre name is the sickest name for a genre ever. Like, that is dope. Why wouldn't you want to be called that?
You know exactly what it sounds like. Like
Oh,
if someone
yeah.
says math rock and you're like, oh yeah, I got it.
Weird time signatures and lots of tapping.
Right. Love that. Some noodly guitar riffs.
Do you remember when everything was called like Noodly or Twinkly in like the emo scene?
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
Snow. Everybody was like, "Stop calling us that."
It's like twinkle punk, or like noodle pop.
Yeah, yeah.
What does that mean? It's a sick name too.
We had a friend who was like in a band that was in like that sound, and he was always like, "It's so reductive." It's like we're more than just twinkling and tapping. I was like, "It's true. You got some great melodies in your stuff, but at the same time, it's what your guitars sound like." So.
Right.
I mean, if you're doing that,
Expect that tag.
I do. Yeah, like that twinkle tag. That was like 08, I guess. Like 2010 was when those bands were kind of like really.
Yeah. It was like I'd say probably like 08 to 2011 was like the strongest it was. 2010 was like the year it was like 9, 10 were like the big years for it. Like your Snowing and Grown Ups and all those bands.
Dude, I've seen Grown Ups in concert. That was wild. Like they played a show here in Brooklyn at this spot called the Anchored Inn. Like, dude, I posted a video of that show on YouTube, and it's still up on YouTube. And it's the only video I've ever posted in my account. It's still up. But yeah, dude, that show was awesome.
I love that. Like I love that full length they did. More songs.
I actually really loved the EP they put out after. I thought that was better than more songs. But I mean,
Handholder or something?
Yeah, the one with Wigwam.
Yeah, it's got like the butterflies on the front.
That EP is fucking awesome. Damn.
Yeah. I feel like we're due for a reunion of those bands. Like Snowing did do like a reunion in Japan.
Yeah, they did. I thought that was like awesome to do. But it's like they didn't do it here. But I heard that I guess a show happening in Philly or something before they set up for that tour. They just were surprise guests at that show. Just popped up and played, and the place went fucking nuts.
I think they even had to post about it, saying we're sorry, it got real dangerous. Or, it was just too many people were crammed into that wherever they were. It was a house or something.
Right.
They're next time we'll make sure to do this plenty in advance and only have the people who can get in. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, at that moment, it's kind of just fuck it, dude. We haven't played in a while. Let's just do it.
It's like when Jawbreaker did that, they did a show in Brooklyn? Just out of nowhere?
Yeah, I think it was the one. I think it was at Brooklyn Steel, which is a legitimate big ass venue. That's I think it's one of the main venues we have out here.
They did one before the Riot Fest reunion, and it was supposedly insane. That would have been crazy to see them in that little room.
Mm-hmm.
We got really far from 97.
Well, the influences on that sound are very active in 97.
Yeah.
That's true. This is true.
Because they broke up when did they break up?
I don't know too much about Jawbreaker, to be honest.
Don't remember when they... Oh, yeah, they were already broken up by this point because Promise Ring toured with them in 98. Or toured with Jester Brazil in 98. So, yeah, Jawbreaker was definitely done.
Oh, damn, they didn't last too long then, did they?
They started early, I think.
Oh, okay.
Late 80s, and then the last record I want to say is 95. Dear You might be 95. So they were really ahead of that sound too, which makes sense. Everybody picks it up a couple years later.
Right.
Yeah, because there's 97 is a pretty cool year because there's 2 Hot Water Music records. There's Forever and Counting, which is my favorite, and Fuel for the Hate Game, which is another classic.
Right.
We have Lifetime's Jersey's Best Dancers. That's when they got real good.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. I mean, like when you gave me the year '97, I was like, okay, and you sent me a link, and I feel like I even said this yesterday. Like I remember like kind of like going through and be like, damn, like all these awesome bands that I love like released the record. I just don't know any of these records that they're putting out. Like what was it? Like I think like Built to Spill put out a record, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Was it Cursive put out a record? Dismemberment Plan put out a record. Less Savvy Fab put out a record. The Hives put out a record. Remember that band, The Hives?
Yeah, yeah.
And like, but it was literally all the records that I did not know. So like, I was about to hit you up and be like, dude, I think we need to switch up the years.
we've we've definitely had that before too, where we were
I
like,
know,
hey,
but I was like, no, fuck it. Like, I want to have fun with it. So I was like, screw it. I'm gonna do '97. You gave me '97, and we're gonna do it. So,
we had good shit in '97.
right, yeah, and like, so, yeah. I mean, it looked like '97 was a really big year for that type of stuff. I just feel like for me, like, I don't know. I guess I just like neglected that year '97 because I listened to so many albums before '97 and so many albums after '97, and
But
then
you're
like a
right.
lot. What's up?
You're right though. It's not like the ones they're well known for. Like that.
Right.
I know you're a big Cursive fan. Like,
Uh-huh.
what record is that? It's like a obscure one, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's time. And I've heard of some of their obscure ones. I have not listened to that one at all.
Such blinding stars for starving eyes.
It's like, what, dude?
I've never even heard that
Like, what
title
is this?
before.
That's the first
Yeah.
album.
Yeah, so it's like, wow, yeah.
It's
Domestica.
2 albums before Domestica.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah. And then what was the other one? Like, Blinding. I don't know. Or maybe you just said.
Storms of Early Summer.
Yeah, that
Semantics
one.
of Song.
Yeah.
Dude, these titles are incredible. Like, what were they thinking? And that second one that you just listed, I know that one. And that album is actually fucking awesome. That's actually the album where I got the name for the Big Easy.
Okay, because I saw
Yeah.
I saw an interview you did with someone who was like, so is it named after New Orleans? It's like,
It's like, no. No. What interview was that? I mean, like, well, I mean, I've been getting that literally since day one. And what's annoying, well, not really annoying, like, you know, I did it to myself, is that, like I heard, like, one of the songs on that record, that Cursive record, and one of the lyrics is really cool. He mentions the Big Easy. And I was like, oh, that's sick. Like, those 3 words together, that's a sick-ass fucking name.
Yeah.
So I named the Big Easy that, and then I didn't know that was the nickname for New Orleans. So, like, I didn't, like, every time I would tell someone my band name, still to this day, I'd be like, yeah, like, I'm in a band called The Big Easy. They go, oh, like, are you from New Orleans? At the time, I didn't know why everyone kept on asking me that. I was like, why do people keep asking me that shit? I found out it was actually the nickname for New Orleans. And I was like, fuck, my band name just got a lot less cool. It's like, fuck. Like, it'd be like naming like my band The Big Apples like that. I was like, fuck, dude, that's not that's stupid. But I mean, like, whatever. I mean, I'm
here's my new band, City That Never Sleeps.
Yeah. God, clown.
I mean, it's not as what is it? It's not as a prevalent a nickname as like the Windy City or something like that.
Right. You know, the Rotten Apple.
Yeah. Have you heard anything from any of? I know there's like cover bands that use the name The Big Easy.
Right.
Have you heard anything from any of those bands saying like, "Hey, that's our name"? You took
No,
our...
no, I haven't. I mean, I just don't think we're even at a point where people are paying attention to that shit yet. I mean, hopefully I never get that call, but I mean, I definitely have like saw on Spotify. There's like this band called Big Easy Band, and then like there's like a bunch of just like I guess like New Orleans music that use that and like cover bands and shit. But no, none of that's me just yet. I hope they don't. At this point, like I look at what they got going on, I look at what we got going on. I'm like, you know what? We're taking this.
You're never gonna cross paths.
Yeah, like, it's like you know
one's
what?
gonna
Like
be confused.
we're good. Or maybe we should play a show in the Big Easy and get all the Big Easy bands on the bill and just have a Big Easy night.
It's just a bunch of like jazz bands and you.
Yeah. I mean, it really is a big point for us now to go down to New Orleans and play a show down there because I mean, it's only right.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's only...
there are some other, like, I see, like, I'm looking at Last FM because that's usually like a good place to see if
Wow,
who
that
else
website
is.
still exists?
Oh yeah, it's still up there. Your album has the most listens under any
Really?
other album under the Big Easy name.
Oh,
So
hell yeah. Wow, damn. We have the crown then. I'm
yeah,
taking
you
it.
win. You're the most prominent. Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
no one's going to confuse your brand with, Dixieland's
Right.
swing rival or whatever.
Oh, I love that for me.
You'll change it in a few years. It'll be like BGEY as your like your new.
I am ready for that day. I have a large list of band names in the notes of my phone that I can just flip to whenever I need to. Oh my god.
97. There's one record on here that I really wanted to call out before we even go further. Is the Weaker Thans Fallow. It's the first Weaker Thans record. They are one of my all-time favorite bands. We've talked about them a lot on the show. We're still waiting for somebody to pick one of their records one day, but
Right. Sorry, I wasn't the one.
Yeah, Weaker Thans Fallow is probably the biggest record on this list for me personally. You're probably around the same age as us. I'm 34. Dylan's 30.
I'm 30.
Do you remember what you were listening to in 97? Because I don't really. This is like right before I kind of like really became a music kid. Like I listened to radio, but
right. I mean, to be honest, I have no clue.
Yeah.
No, I mean, let me take that back. It's not that I don't have any clue. I just wasn't like at 7 years old. I wasn't listening to this shit. I was only listening to kind of like what was playing.
Yeah.
And I think around that time, I could tell you that like the first musics I responded to, which was definitely around that age, was Michael Jackson, which isn't obviously too kosher right now, but also Elton John. So like at that time, like I remember, like I just recently did this little article in which I had to like list like 5 songs that kind of like in each different phase of my life, like childhood, teenage years, college years, now and the future and stuff like that. And like I remember I have this really fond memory of just like being in love with the song Benny and the Jets. Like that song is so good. And so like me and my cousin at the time would just like grab like the Elton John greatest hits that we had laying around my house. And every time we'd hang out, we'd just like go and throw that shit out and just fucking sing that song and run around the whole house. But I think like if I was gonna say I was listening to anything, it probably was like just that.
Yeah.
Like just Michael Jackson, whenever that was on. And or like that would get the most response out of me rather. And then Elton John. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, we listened to the radio a lot. We heard a lot of just like whatever records our parents listened to, my dad listened to. So probably a lot of Kiss, Guns N' Roses.
Nice.
I do want to
Start
say
early.
1997 was the year. Was this the year that we got our CD player
For Christmas?
for Christmas?
I want to say yes. Because in 98, the Eve 6 record came out that I had, and it was one of the first, probably the first 10 CDs I had. So, yeah, I probably got a CD player in 97.
Then we definitely got it in 97, the Christmas of 97, because in November of 97, Some Kind of Zombie by Audio Adrenaline came out. That was my first favorite.
Had to make sure you cop that.
That
to make sure
was
you got
what I was
that one.
listening to in 1997, at least the very end of it.
Nice.
Yeah, I do remember there's a Green Day record this year, Nimrod.
Yeah.
I remember I probably had some cassettes. That's probably what I had before any CDs. And I do remember liking the band Smashing Pumpkins a lot, but I didn't have any of their albums on cassette. I got like the Batman and Robin soundtrack on cassette because they have 2 songs on it.
Wow.
But I do
Crazy.
remember watching the music video for Hitchin' a Ride, which is was the lead single off that Green Day record with my cousin. I was like, I remember it debuting that week, and then I didn't see like the debut, but I saw it the next day because they would just like run the videos nonstop
Right.
as soon as when they got
What I feel like, for me, even like growing up, I think a significant record that came out in '97. You can probably correct me if I'm wrong on this, and it's we're kind of straying a little bit, but like it was probably what I was hearing a lot was Jay-Z's second record, Hard Knock Life, in my lifetime. I think that came out in '97, and I know that was like where I'm from and where like I grew up, like that was big. That was that was what I was hearing on the radio, Hot 97. Because that's essentially like the music I was hearing, besides like kind of like the mainstream shit, was like a lot of hip hop and a lot of rap. And I know like that was probably one of the biggest hip hop albums to come out that year. And the song Hard Knock Life was on the radio all the fucking time. And I remember like hating that song as a kid, like just like hating that like tune and that melody. Obviously, me growing up, looking back at that song was a fucking banger. Like, that song is fire. And also, the Annie song is incredible too. But it really is. And I think that was kind of like if we're talking about '97, like I think that's probably the most significant record I can come up with. Where I'm from and what we were listening to was probably that one.
I think that was actually '98.
Yeah, I pulled it up.
Right,
there
cool.
was In My Lifetime came out in '97.
Okay.
That was the other Jay-Z.
Okay, so all right, got it. Because I feel like I know Jay-Z's first record came out in '96, and I always felt like he kind of just followed up like every year with like a new record and shit.
Yeah.
So I just put in my mind that it might have been '97, but I mean, hell, I've been wrong before.
I mean, things run together too. Like from that young, you're not gonna be like 100% sure. Like, yeah, that came out. It's like, no, it came out 4 years earlier. What are you talking about? Well, I was 5. So what?
Well, thank you for fact checking me. Now I sound like an asshole.
Now nobody's gonna yell at it.
Yeah.
They don't even know.
I'm telling you, man, '97 was a hard year for me.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult time in my life.
So we can get into the record we were talking about today.
Right.
So we gave you '97, and you picked "Nothing Feels Good" by The Promise Ring.
Up in circles, one like a widow's, second the motion of second nature. Like to rise, knotted engine, knotted and still where sound is lost and found. But I fear it's all just coming back to me. And I fear that it's all just coming back, it's all coming back, it's all coming back to me. And under that thread of sky, we lie together, I care about the weather. It only ends in darkness. You're always dressed and caught in that.
Sure did.
And I like to lead off with this. What made you pick this record specifically?
I mean, I guess aside from like being like one of the records that I know like the most like on that in that list, I think it's really actually like that record has been significant for me, and like I guess kind of like my circle of like friends at the time when we were in high school for like a long time now. And I graduated high school like over 10 years ago. I've known about that record for so long, and that record has just been very significant in, just the whole music journey. I was in a band in high school, my first band, and like my best buddy and like the lead, like songwriter in that band. Like that's like one of his favorite records of all time. So just naturally being friends with him and hearing it all the time and kind of like knowing about this band, listening to this band. So like our band like was pretty much a rip off of that shit. So I mean it definitely was significant to me because of like how that record like even like indirectly kind of like influenced me.
Well, cool. I'll run through some stats on this record for those unfamiliar. So, a perfectly named album. Nothing Feels Good for 2020. They
Definitely
were
good.
from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hey, Wisconsin turned out to be important this week.
Yeah. Wow.
They existed from 95 to 2002. This was released on October 14th, 1997. So
Hey, that's my anniversary.
Nice.
yeah, it is. It was released on Jade Tree Records, and this is their second album, and by far their most popular.
Mhm.
The personnel on this record is Davey Von Bolen on guitar and vocals, Jason Uakow on guitar, maybe, Scott Bachetta on bass, and Dan Didier on drums. And the record was produced by Jay Robbins. So those are some of the big notes.
I did not know Jay Robbins produced that one.
He has like produced so many iconic records,
Right.
like on top of being on multiple iconic records as the main musician. You know,
Right.
yeah. I was shocked to see this was a Jay Robbins record too. I guess it's kind of early, right? When did he
This
start?
would be the time where he really started to produce a lot of records.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I can figure out what else he produced in this time around this time period, because I know he did some stuff that was close, like in the same lane. So he did Do You Know Who You Are by Texas Is the Reason in '96.
I love that record. If
And-
we did 96, I would have chose that record.
That record is so amazing.
It's so good.
Yeah, they're
Like that.
such a great band.
Yeah. So, yeah.
it slapped.
And he did Frame and Canvas by Braid in '98.
So there you go.
So
Those are
he
like
did he did some pretty high grade emo of the late '90s.
I mean, he's probably the
One year in
reason
a
why.
row.
He's probably a big reason why those albums are really that's so good.
they're super slick. Cause like I sampled a little bit of the record that came before this Promise Ring record, and it's solid, but yeah, the production on this one takes it to another level.
Right.
And then like the record after is even like more produced, and I don't remember who the producer on that record was, but like this is like the nice middle ground of like not underproduced, not overproduced, like
Right.
just right. And it's just funny, yeah.
It has that Jay Robbins, like, it's that sound. He's got a sound, and it's not really obvious. It's not like Steve Albini or someone like that.
Right.
Like it'll sneak by you, but when you know it's him, you go, all right. Like all the pieces are there. Like everything is really up front. Everything is really well balanced. Really strong rhythm section on everything. Everything he records, the rhythm section is just pristine.
Well, have you heard that other band he was in? That band Burning Airlines.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he did like that record too. And did he or not?
Probably. I would assume he produced his own stuff. Yeah.
I don't want to talk out my ass and get fact checked.
I mean, I just did too. So I assumed everything he's on, he produced himself.
Right. But I mean, that record, like that first one they did, is so good, but it also sounds so good. Like the drums in there, like they slap.
Says I'm looking at says it was produced by the band Peter Gray Mansign, Chad Clark, and Don Zientara. It's a DC record, so of course Don Zientara is involved in some way.
Nice.
Probably his studio. So yeah, he had a hand in the production. So
right.
It's a safe.
But yeah, I did not know he did that Promising record. That is cool.
No, like, and I guess he just like kind of helped shape the overall sound of emo in the late '90s, like, which
Definitely.
is because Jawbox themselves, I guess, early material you could put in that, emo core sound, sort of.
Carrying a lot of what Embrace and Dag Nasty did in the '80s. I feel like Jawbox was a direct extension of that.
Yeah, it's like the next step in that. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I gotta bring up on my end too. Let me. Yeah, here it is. Let me get this track listing up. Got it.
So, like, I've heard this record before you picked it for the show. So, like, I was familiar that this is a classic record. I've heard it myself. And then, like, I listened to it again. I was like, I forgot how good this record really
Exactly.
is.
That's what happened to me, dude. I haven't listened to this record so long, and I chose it, and then, like, all right, like, let me give this record a couple of spins and, like, get ready. I'm like, damn, dude, like, every song is hitting me. Like, what? That album is like, yeah, like, it was a good kind of, like, refresher reminder, like, how, like, good this album is.
Like, those first, 4 songs? Is This Thing On? Perfect Lines, Red and Blue Jeans, and Why Did We Ever Meet?
Mm-hmm.
Outstanding.
like, what, dude, like, when the bass on Is This Thing On, like, in that last chorus, when it drops to, like, the lower octave, I'm just like, yes! It's like, yes!
Yeah, because he's doing this thing, too. He's not, like, full-on strumming at some parts. He's just kind of, like, holding the chord. So, like, you hear it moving up and down the neck, but he's not, like, full strumming it, and it's just, like, the bass is doing all the work on that.
Right. Yeah, they do that. I mean, I think, like, the bass on this record is so good. Like, he's really doing his thing, like, moving around and kind of just, like, I don't know, like, the bass is just awesome on this album.
You know what's really funny is, though? This dude left the band, like, after this record came out. So, like, in the liner notes, it credits him as, like, the bass player and, like, a writer on the record. But then, and in it does that thing where it's, like, the band is, and then, like, instead of his name, it says Tim Burton, because it's the guy's name who replaced him in the band. And it's just, like, apparently, like, the drummer and the bass player did not get along, and they kind of had, like,
one?
They had to fall out. They had a falling out, basically, and it was just like, all right, we're done with him. We're gonna get a new bass player for our tour.
Wow, I did not know that. I mean, like, if you're asking me, I think the bass playing is better than the drum playing on that record. If it came down to that, I'd be like,
I certainly noticed it more. Like, it's definitely what stands out more than the drumming. I think the drummer and the lead singer had a really close relationship because they did projects together later too.
Got it.
So, it's like choosing your friends. So
Right. I mean, I understand that.
I think the drumming on this record is interesting in a kind of understated way. To me, it was very much not what I would have expected from a drummer playing in an emo indie rock,
right,
sort of pop punk, sort of punk
mm-hmm.
band at this time period. He's got it's just a very continuous sound. It's almost like a dance beat,
right?
And then there are little subtle things, like he's got some little, like, triplet fills, and it's interesting if you pay attention to it, but it definitely doesn't grab you immediately.
Right. I always find the bass just, like, grabs me immediately. Like the bass lines on this record are so they're such their own thing.
I was reading too that he, like, specifically made a point to not just play the root on this record. Like, he went out of his way to try and come up with, like, a unique pattern or, like, melody with the bass, which
I'm not surprised. It really shows.
Yeah, because, like, a lot of the songs, like, the guitar isn't even going throughout the entire.
So what's really cool about, all right, so I have this thing in music where I absolutely love when, like, a guitar part or, like, anything, like, a melody stays the same as the chord progression continues, and, like, that's, like, I fucking love that shit. And they do it twice on this album. It's on, like, Pink Chimneys and Make Me a Chevy, where the guitars are playing the same thing the whole song, and the bass line is giving you the chord progression and, like, moving the song along, and I love that so much. So, like, I was gonna say the bass, like, the guitars in this record is, like, it's cool, it's not bad, but, like, they're not really doing anything too crazy, I don't think. I'm never, like, getting caught off guard by, like, the guitar or, like, anything like that, but, like, I'm constantly getting caught off guard by the bass lines, like this part and, like, the verse here, and then, like, all that Philly, like, it's crazy. Or, like, even, like, a broken tenor, like, that song is pretty much like listen to the bass. He's going off on that.
Yeah, that one has, like, a swing to it. Like, that broken tenor, it's got, like, this bounce to it that, like, some of the other songs don't have.
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's a bounce to like Forget Me, the last track. It's like a bouncy tune, but Pink Chimneys, it's so funny. Like the record starts with like 4 killer tracks. Make Me a Chevy is great, and it's also a very repetitive song lyrically. I mean, so is the opener, but and then it does like weird stuff like How Nothing Feels is not really a full song. It's just more like an interlude-y thing. And Raspberry Bush is like a slower song. There's an acoustic song in there too. But then like Pink Chimneys, B is for Bethlehem, and Forget Me. It's like you knocked it out of the park with the last 3 songs on the record too. Like
I think B for Bethlehem is the best song on the album.
It's like a standout song.
That song is stupidly good.
Which you almost never see at the end of a record. It's like the second to last track.
That's true,
People are like, let's front load the record, all the great stuff. But they like sandwiched this album with like top, 2 really great ends to it.
I agree.
From the sins of our shoulders, run its motives to waters just struggling and now my only thing, your hands across my back, where you're resting when you rest. Cried at the funeral 'cause you can go anywhere, to be hallowed by thy name and my name ours.
For me, I always kind of looked at this, like, I've always looked at this record as obviously like a very, important indie, emo record. But the part that really kind of made it cool for me, and this is also part of the reason why I love Modest Mouse so much too, is that like a lot of the times in this genre, the bass really isn't doing much of anything, or the rhythm section is kind of just like, doing their thing, and it's really about like the guitar playing and the lyrics and the delivery of the vocals and whatnot. But I feel like for this record, not to say that stuff isn't prominent on this album, but I feel like what made this one different is like the bass playing, and I feel that way about Modest Mouse too. More so even the drummer of Modest Mouse. But the way like you already have a good song, and then they give you something extra to kind of like listen to or be into outside of like the main stuff. Why we like emo indie rock in a way. Like we're so obsessed with the lyrics, how they're delivered, and guitars and the screaming and yelling and whatnot. But then on top of that, like you have this guy or this rhythm section like giving you like killer bass lines and making you kind of bop a little bit. Like to me, I'm like, this is sick. I feel like this record was really, really one of those that did that exceptionally well.
It's funny. I was thinking of like the vocals, and they're a little buried in places. Like is this thing on? Is like it starts, and he's kind of like hidden a little bit. It takes a little bit to realize how much he's repeating himself in that song. And then I feel like in Perfect Lines is when he really like kind of steps out and like becomes more an intricate, a very important part of the song, especially like the Bell South Southern Belle references in that song.
Sure.
So like he has an interesting voice. It's like a smooth voice. He's not like shouting, but he's also not like a standout singer in the sense that like, oh wow, listen to what he's doing with his voice. It's just like he fits what he's doing, and it's more what he's saying than how he's singing it. But
he definitely has a standout vibe for sure.
I think what makes him an interesting vocalist is his phrasing, like the way it's more his rhythm in his voice than it is anything he's doing melodically, because most of the melodies are pretty simple. And I mean, there's just definitely some really catchy ones.
Yeah.
Certain verses, certain choruses are really, really memorable, but he's not having to like push himself to do it. He's just kind of like reciting it. All of his lines are like that. He's just kind of like almost just talking.
Yeah, in a way, kind of. I understand. I agree with that 100%.
Like the most to me, like the best chorus or whatever you want to call it on the record is "Why Do We Ever Meet?" And it's just like ba ba ba's. You know, it's not like
Ba, ba, ba. Yeah.
yeah, no words.
Yeah. That happens a lot in this album. I feel like
Two of those. There's another like really big one. Is it during Pink Chimneys?
I feel like it's in Perfect Lines, maybe, right? Where he does that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I might be forgetting it already. But he does that, like, you know, ba-da-ba-ba. and I love that type of shit, too.
Yeah.
I always, like, love when, like, the Beatles just go, ah! And it's like, yeah, like, fuck the lyrics. Let's just sing now.
What's the word in the Earth, Wind, and Fire song, September, where it's just not even a word. He's just, like, scatting. It's, like, right there in the chorus.
Like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even care what you're talking about. Just sing it to me, dude. Like, I do not even care.
It took me forever to realize that song was called September.
Oh,
Just
wow,
body
yeah.
eye.
No, body, that part is awesome. Did you just look up that lyric and it just said body, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Like, it doesn't have to mean anything. It just sounds so good.
Yeah.
But you know what he means. you know what he means.
I was looking up like some like the background stuff on the band, and like I didn't realize that the lead singer was in Cap'n Jazz.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he was in Cap'n Jazz while the Promise Ring started. It was like a side project, and then
Right.
Cap'n Jazz broke up and on tour, I think, and so then he's like, okay, well, Promise Ring's my band now, like my full time.
Yeah.
Focus.
He was in Cap'n Jazz. Like, this band is kind of legendary.
Yeah,
Kind
I know.
of a big deal. It's kind of a big deal.
It's like the Kinsellas get all the attention from Captain Jazz. Captain Jazz.
Oh boy. Oh, you gotta edit that part out.
Captain Bebop.
You can't let the '90s emo kids hear you call it that.
No, you idiot! It's not Captain Jazz. Yeah, the Kinsellas kind of get all the attention when it comes to Captain Jazz, and it's like, well, this dude's right here. The Promise Ring guy was in the band too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Promise Ring didn't sound like Cap'n Jazz, though.
No,
That's true.
yeah, American Football, even though they played like a much slower style than Cap'n Jazz, it's still like that sound. That sound is there. It's very much.
It's that guitar work.
Yeah. Yeah, the record was like compared to Knapsack and Superchunk from around this time. and I actually really hear it because Superchunk put out Indoor Living in '97, and that's one of their like more mellow records. And so like it's kind of in that same speed. So it does get that indie rock label just because of its similarities to what indie rock was doing in the mid '90s.
Right. I feel like the quintessential indie rock band at that time was probably like Pavement, though.
Yeah.
And I'm sure. I mean, like even then, I still think those bands could probably even play the same show. It wouldn't be weird at all.
Not at all. They toured with Jimmy Eat World on support of this record.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn,
and apparently, the vocalist even has guest vocals on Bleed American on one song.
Yeah. I think he sings in it goes like, what's the one? Oh, fuck
I can
me.
pull it up. I know exactly which one
yeah, I'm gonna have to do that. Oh man.
Praise Chorus.
Praise Chorus.
Yes, that's the one. That's when you got me. You beat me. But yeah, it's in that song.
And so,
which is cool as hell.
They toured with Jimmy Eat World, and they toured with Jets to Brazil in '98, which makes sense. They're on Jade Tree too, so that makes sense. But they toured with Hum in '98 too, and their van flipped, and like the lead singer flew through the front windshield. Like the bass player they had got hurt pretty bad. The guitarist hurt. Is there another guitarist on the record, right? Yeah, Jason, the other guitarist, he like broke his collarbone. He was in the hospital for like weeks, and then like when he came back on tour, like he had a lot of trouble like wearing his guitar, while playing because of his collarbone. So like they eventually let him go from the band. I don't know if it was just because it was just too much for him and he was still trying to recover, but
that sucks.
Yeah, it's like they're at their peak. This record came out. It's like it did well. They said it sold 5 figures, and then they do a tour flip or a van flip. It's like, ugh, that's
a tragic story.
And like, yeah,
tragic.
I mean, they wound up going back on tour later in the year, and it worked out for them. But it's like it makes you wonder what momentum they lost by injury.
Right.
And then like,
and how hesitant you would be to push yourself, to tour constantly and.
Yeah, I mean, well, your health's got to come first. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Your health has got to come first.
And then later, the lead singer had a tumor on his brain that he had removed. I want to say around 2002 or something like that, close to when the band broke up. So, like, this band has had a lot of, like, issues as far as health,
The devil was trying them. The universe did not want. The universe did not want them to make it.
And it became an iconic record regardless.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, this record, it is one of those records. It's one of those when you think of a 90s emo record, it's one of the first album covers that pops into your head.
Right.
And it was a record that I had listened to in the past, but for some reason, The Promise Ring, I don't know, I guess whenever I was getting really into emo, I gave them a chance, and it just didn't really click with me probably based on what I wanted from emo at that time, which was probably more like Cap and Jazz. I definitely had a really strong Cap and Jazz period in college, and Promise Ring was just a band that I was just like, yeah, they're an important band, but they're not for me. So listening to this record now, I'm like, oh, okay, like it makes sense to get into the Promise Ring at 30, right? Just like, whoops, that was
this
a
record
big blunder.
does slap.
I pulled up the video too because they like shot a music video for Why Did We Ever Meet?
No way.
And it's got a lot of like the staples of like a late 90s emo pop punk video. So like there's like thick black glasses, the raglan t-shirts with like the somebody's wearing a gas station jacket.
I was like, is there any flannel?
No flannel. This was like just a little past that, but they are driving like a classic car, and there's like a BMX bike and roller skates, and then like random people in just like costumes, and like it's like a 90s video.
I'm gonna have to check this video out.
But the dude who directed it is Darren Doan, and I don't know if you know who he is. He like shot a ton of music videos, did like AFI videos, Blink-182, MXPX, but he also directed that Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas movie.
Really?
Yeah. Just like, what?
It all comes back full circle.
How did that happen?
That is wild. It's just kind of crazy to think about like how we think of like all these like I guess big names now, but at the time they were all just probably just like a bunch of no-name people, or just like, oh, maybe the circle was small and they're kind of doing their own thing. And like to hear that like they're kind of like they all were working with people that like doing all this exciting shit like now, or like we think they're so awesome because of what they've done, and like they've like been blown up to like this different like level in which they were at the time when they were doing this shit together. I always think about that, and it's always kind of fucking crazy to think of like how small that scene probably is, and how many people actually knew each other, we saw each other all the time or played shows together. Like, have you guys ever like looked at bills from like the 90s and been like, oh my fucking god, I would have given anything to go to that show?
Yeah.
And that show probably would have been like 500 cap, barely.
Yeah.
Like,
you see those stacked shows where it's like, why are there 10 bands on this bill? Like, this is so, but like, and every band is like a legend now.
right.
Like, how did that happen? You just all knew each other. Oh, he unplugged his headphones and.
Awesome.
Sorry about that.
We lost you.
Yeah, I'm back. But yeah, I mean, like it is kind of crazy to think about like all those bills that like are so insanely stacked today, or that would be so like some of those bills would like be Madison Square Garden.
They would. They would be like reunion, like festival shows, like a lineup you would see at Riot Fest.
Yeah.
I saw this one bill that was like Pavement and like Beck and like Sonic Youth or some shit like that, and like that would be a stage.
Yeah.
Like today.
Yeah.
Which like Beck alone, really, but like.
Right. I was gonna say Beck doesn't even have openers anymore. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Or like one.
Right. Yeah, it's wild. It's crazy to kind of think about. It's just wild.
Well, going for about an hour now, and we did like 40 minutes yesterday. Some of those will get trimmed down, of course. So it's probably a good wrapping up period, unless anybody has any like final thoughts on the record.
I think we said all we need to say about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool then. Tell people how they can get the record. Where to follow you online, all that good stuff.
Okay, well, I'm Stefan. I'm in a band called The Big Easy. Just want to thank you guys for having me. Our record came out, I guess, damn, it doesn't even feel like that. I mean, it's already 2 weeks old, I feel. But it came out October 23rd via Forge Artifacts. You can grab that in our Bandcamp. There's vinyl, cassettes. You can find us on Spotify. But yeah, the album's called A Long Year. check it out, add it to your playlist, share it, whatever. But yeah, you can get it on our Bandcamp, which is thebigeasy.bandcamp.com.
Nice. I'll include links to that as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then finally too, we've asked everyone this in the last couple months. Do you have any like specific charities you would like to call out, or like nonprofits that you would like to direct people's attention to?
Oh man, I wish you would have asked.
Oh
me
yeah.
before.
The reason why we ask is too because like it's like there's always something. Like
Right.
something is always happening. So like there's something we could always be giving to as far as like needing help, you know.
Yeah.
And
I
so
mean,
like
honestly, I think that at this point, like anything, I feel that like anything that's just gonna, help the vibe and or like, support the resistance, support the movement, I think right now. I think that probably a good one will be to look into would be the bail fund. Like we can expect a lot of protests, like even just yesterday. I'm in New York City, and like just yesterday, I was going through Twitter and going through like that stupid social media hole that we all go through, and like kids were just getting beat on by the cops and getting arrested by the cops, and the videos are out there to see, and these kids are going to need help, getting out of prison for like protesting the bullshit that we're seeing every day. So I think that's something that anyone is looking to donate to something. I would say the bail fund would be a great thing to look into, because Lord knows we're going to need it moving forward, especially kind of like after this election, which is not even like kind of finished yet, and whatever the results are going to be, shit's going to be crazy. And the bail fund's offering relief to the ones that deserve it and need it.
yeah, that's usually where I tend to put my dollars too, is bail funds. So
Right.
it's
Right.
like I feel like it's the most immediately impactful.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Sometimes like you need to see where your money's going. You see the the effect of like your contributions. Bail fund, you will see it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Well, thanks a lot for doing the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That's so much fun.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. It's funny we broke it into 2 days. That we don't think we've done that with anybody.
There's just so much to unpack.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll make sure to include links to all that good stuff in the show notes. And before you go, I want to make sure I pronounce your last name right, because Dylan and I are going to record an intro when you go.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I mean, good luck with this. Technically, like my name is pronounced Stefan Berthomieux. It's very French. I've been listening to people butcher my name literally since day one.
Berthomieux?
So, Berthomieux.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to have to make sure.
You got to pretend like you're puking.
Berthomieux. Awesome.
Oh, yeah, that sounded great.